All right. Hey, welcome to Win Your Health with Dr. Ryan Sousley. This is the show where we talk about the most common health issues that people face today and give you natural and practical solutions to help you win your health and win at life. So we have a very special guest with us today. Unfortunately, we're without my lovely co-host, Dr. Erin, but in her stead, we have a decent replacement, Dr. Chris Murphy. So Dr. Chris is a good friend of mine, has been for a lot of years. He is also the clinical director of New Edge Wellness Center in Tri-Cities, Washington. He's the host of the Dr. Chris Show on ACN Radio. He's the voice of the Happy Healthy Hormones podcast, and he's an international best-selling author. So Dr. Chris is going to talk to us today about toxicity and how it relates to hormone balance. He's also going to share his story, which I think is really fascinating, of how he helped his wife overcome numerous health issues by detoxifying and balancing hormones. So I'm super excited to have Dr. Chris on the show today. I know that you guys are going to get a ton of value from today's episode. Before we begin, I just want to take a moment and appreciate our listeners. Just want to say thank you for joining us. If you enjoy listening to our show, the greatest compliment that you could ever give us is to share this episode with others and leave us a review of our podcast on iTunes if you haven't done so already. You know, when you review and listen to our episodes, it helps us reach more people, and it also helps us keep our content relevant to listeners just like you. And we actually read every single review that you leave us. We love to hear about how our show has impacted you. So today we are continuing our discussion of toxicity. We're very excited to announce an upcoming webinar called the Detox Project, where we're going to cover all things toxicity related. We're going to cover what toxins are, where they come from, how they lead to things like inflammation, weight gain, low energy, and even more serious issues like heart disease, diabetes, cancer. We have two special guests joining me and Dr. Erin. Number one, Cece McClintock, who's a functional nutritionist, and the one and only Dr. Chris Murphy, who's with us today. So this webinar is going to show you how to safely, gently, and effectively remove toxins from your body and your environment that have accumulated over time. And as a bonus, people that attend the webinar are also going to get a free gift called the 21-Day Detox Kickstart. It's an ebook that's going to give you step-by-step actions that you can take right away to start detoxifying your life, detoxifying your home. This week, we're going to shift our focus to hormone imbalances caused by exposure to toxins in our environment. You know, certain toxins, like those primarily found in personal care products, are classified as endocrine or hormone disruptors. And Dr. Chris, I know you're going to talk a lot about this today, but they disrupt hormone balance and they lead to a whole slew of health issues. And, you know, your hormone system or your endocrine system is made up of a bunch of glands that produce and secrete hormones. And hormones are chemical substances produced in the body that regulate the activity of cells or organs. They turn things on, they turn things off. But toxins induce, inhibit, mimic, block hormones in the body. Some examples of symptoms that you might experience from these issues would be unexplained weight gain, fatigue, insomnia, infertility, changes in your hair, skin, or nails. Another specific example has been studied in the literature, and that is the effect that arsenic has on your thyroid gland. And arsenic disrupts thyroid hormone receptors on the cells so that cells don't get the message from that hormone to increase metabolism. Dr. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Dr. Ryan. Good to be here.
Tell our listeners why you became passionate about hormone balance in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, what really started in my journey is becoming a wellness expert is helping people get to the cause of their problems. And so when I first actually met my wife, I was pretty early on in practice. And when I met her, you know, I fell in love with her right off the bat, but she was sick. You know, she had really lost her health at the age of 26 years old. You know, when I first met her, she was getting migraines multiple times a week so badly that she would have to close herself off in a dark room, call in sick from work. She was getting sinus infections every couple of months, plus colds and flus. This led towards taking antibiotics, and she was literally seemed like she was living on those things. This started to affect just her anxiety too. So she was on anxiety medications, and she was just, you know, spiraling out of control. You looked on the outside, she looked like she was healthy, right? She was, you know, in shape, looked like she was fit, all these things, but on the inside, she was really suffering. And so we started to help her. She started to apply, the 5 foundations that we teach with our patients, and started to help balance out those hormones and help get her body better from just years of bad choices. Not any fault of her own. It was just things that she had grown up learning, not knowing anything different. When she was sick, she was taught to take a medication, not to trust in her body, to not really worry about what she's putting in her body. And so we started to help her with that. And she started to balance out those hormones and those stress hormones, and things started to get better. And so she was doing really well. And then stress came into her life in a different fashion. And so what happened was, all in about a 6-month process, maybe, 6 to 12 months, a lot of life changes. We got married. She moved into a new home. She was a cheerleading coach at the time, and it was really stressful with all you can imagine dealing with teenage girls and their mothers. So there was stress there. And then changing a new profession. She stopped teaching, went into opening her own business as well. And so all these life changes really started to wear her down emotionally, and it started to create insomnia in her life. And so that started to unbalance hormones. And then as we started to dig through things as well, although she was doing things a lot better than she was, and she was applying a lot of the foundations, there were certain things she wasn't applying. And one of those areas was not eliminating enough toxins in her life. And not just that, but toxins that had built up in her body over a lifetime. And so now you added this other element of this emotional stress, and it really started to just make her body collapse. And so now, she wasn't sleeping. She developed insomnia to where she was only getting 1 or 2 hours of sleep a day. And this led towards affecting other hormones in her body. So then she started to gain weight. She gained over 40 pounds. She was depressed. It was just a really dark time. And I knew that she could get better. And even though I knew that she could get better, she couldn't make those changes until she decided to help herself. And so she started to apply those foundations again. And we started to dig in deeper and address those underlying causes and address things like the toxicity that we hadn't really addressed before. And week by week, she started to get better month by month. And today, she no longer has those problems. She can get a full 8 hours of sleep and feel rested. She doesn't have the issues with the depression like before. She was able to get her metabolism back and going again to where she lost the weight and actually got in the shape of her life, and ended up winning Mrs. Washington and went on to compete on the national stage in a bikini, and just really started to get back her life. And most importantly, she was able to live out her dreams again and build her business and empower more women. And that's really what it's about when we get our patients healthy. It's about letting them live their full potential and removing the interferences from their life.
It sounds like what you've done is you've turned that testimony into a life purpose. Now you're spending your time, you're putting all the education and experience and all the 10,000 hours that you've put into becoming a chiropractor and a doctor of natural medicine. You've put all that towards being able to help people because you saw firsthand how that help, changed your wife's life. And I think that's awesome. So I think the next question is, why did you decide to focus on hormones as a healthcare practitioner?
What I focus on is really focusing on cause. And that could be a couple of different avenues. But really what we find is now with our culture and our culture here in America specifically, we have created such a toxic environment, not just chemically, but also emotionally as well. And there's other aspects of that it's really started to affect all aspects of our hormone. And you just have one hormone that's out of balance and it's a ripple effect. It starts to affect everything else. And then so many people are confused by hormones that they start to do a lot of things that aren't really the right thing to do. They start getting on Dr. Google and Googling all these things they should do. They start to get onto these, health gurus, and they think they're doing something right, but they're not either doing enough of that thing or they're not doing the right sequence. And so then they get frustrated, and then they just continue to get sicker and sicker. And then they get desperate enough that they either reach out for the medication for the first time, or they go back to the medications, which we know is just going to further ingrain that person into disruption in their hormones and in their life. Because, let's face it, as you know, the statistics show that the more medications you take, the lower your quality of life gets, and it takes years off your life. And most importantly, it takes quality away from you. And so we've just realized that, hey, when we can start helping people get to the foundational cause, work with their hormones, help balance everything out, people get better quicker. They have more energy. They start feeling better. They have more mental clarity, and it allows them to do other things in their life and other areas of their lifestyle that just help them continue to compound. It's like that exponential growth, right?
Yep. Here's another question for you. What are the greatest issues that you see in clinical practice when it comes to hormone imbalances? Like typically, how does a patient present?
Absolutely. I'd say probably one of the biggest things that we see people experiencing is going to be low energy, the fatigue, the chronic fatigue. People just aren't having that energy that they had before. And a lot of times I like to call it slow death, meaning they don't notice it right off the bat. It's not like one day you have all this energy and the next day, boom, you're just drained and you have nothing. It's just that slow warming up, just like slowly heating up the water that a frog is in. It'll just stay there until eventually it dies, versus throwing it into the boiling water, it'll jump right out. And so that's what happens in our own life is, through the stress we have from our jobs, it slowly wears us down. The stress we have from the foods we're eating, it slowly wears us down. It's almost unnoticeable. In fact, I'd say 95% of the time it is unnoticeable until eventually we wake up one day, maybe 20 years down the road, 5 years, a year, whatever it is. Everyone's body's different in how they react to stresses. And boom, now we have no energy. We're now starting to have other manifestations. So the other things will be, maybe the anxiety or depression that goes along with that, weight gain or the weight loss resistance. All those things are some of the most common hormone imbalances, even things that lead in towards digestive issues. People think, well, what does digestion have to do with a hormone imbalance? Well, it has a lot to do with the other systems and how that affects that. So I'd say probably those are some of the most common things, and it can present in so many other ways. So that's why it's so important that you actually don't diagnose yourself, but actually go to someone like you, Dr. Ryan, and myself that actually understands the body, how it works, not just going to someone either that just wants to patch a symptom. Because it's really easy, like you said, to give yourself even a medication or maybe even just a supplement to have some more energy. But at the end of the day, it's just a patch. It's not a real fix.
What are the primary causes of hormone imbalance? Like, where do these things come from?
The very root, it comes from our day-to-day lifestyle. It's usually never one major incident that creates these issues. I mean, there's certain cases that it can. I mean, you have a really impactful emotional event that happens in your life. It can stem these things. Maybe a really close person that you lose in your life, something really dramatic. But usually what we find is it's just the daily habits we have. Most of us know that McDonald's is bad and salad is good, yet we continue to go to the drive-thru. Most of us know that we shouldn't be putting chemicals in or on our body, but it's just the easier thing to do. And so you think, man, it's not that big a deal. A little bit of this here, a little bit of that there, not that big of a problem. And so we really look at the 5 foundations. Number one is we look at people's function of the nervous system. A lot of times that's just been worn down so long from these other stressors, physical, chemical, emotional, that starts to get out of balance. We can also look at things like the food that we put into our bodies. Right now, the average person consumes over 100 pounds of food chemicals, additives, and preservatives every year, and our body just can't process it all. And so that starts to build up that bioaccumulation. And then we look at working out, fitness. Some of us are working out, but we're just doing the workouts that aren't really efficient and best for our body. We're the people that are on the treadmill for an hour, 2 hours, reading a magazine. It's not really doing any good, but it's just really stressing our body out, versus maybe doing a 12 to 20 minute workout that gets a lot of impact and stimulates our hormones as well. A lot of people aren't working out for that reason, and that's a really important thing. And then you can also look at toxins, which I've talked about, and obviously we're going to be talking about that at the detox project that's coming up here soon. And I'm going to be going a lot more depth in these things when we guys talk to you guys about that. But man, it's just, there's a lot of different avenues of that we could talk about. And I think some of the most relevant ones are really just things we put on or in our body consciously. There are those things out there that we don't think about or maybe aren't aware of in our environment. And that's a whole other conversation. And we should try not to worry about those as much, just worry about the things we can control. And then, the other thing too, is just that emotional stress that we put on ourselves. That can be just as toxic. You think toxic is like something you put on or in your body, something tangible, but that emotional toxin that we put in ourselves or on ourselves wears our body down, and it allows those other stressors to really take hold of us and create bigger problems.
So when it comes to toxicity, beyond just toxic thoughts, and I know that's such a huge thing, But I also know that people are curious about, specific products, like things that they're using what would you say the most common, because you mentioned earlier, it's kind of like this slow drip. It's not like you walked into the garage and drank a gallon of gasoline or something. That's why you're toxic, or whatever, bleach or Clorox. It's this slow drip that's insidious that we don't even realize is happening over years and decades. What are the most common things or the common sources that those things come from?
Yeah. So, this is more of not to get too broad, but there are a lot of things that are hormone disruptors. And that's the big thing. Most toxins are hormone disruptors, which is going to lead towards creating cancers and other diseases in your body. But one of the biggest things I see are personal products. And this is usually going to affect women more than it's going to affect men, but the average woman consumes or uses anywhere from like 12 to 15. I think the last statistic I saw, personal products every day, versus a man maybe closer to 5 to 8. But here's the fact that those are riddled with different compounds and chemicals, endocrine disruptors, and things that are going to just create and wreak havoc on your body. And your skin, most people don't realize that your skin is like a giant sponge. Anything you put on it is going to be absorbed into your bloodstream almost immediately. Like when you put an essential oil on your body, which is something good that you want to put on your body, that'll get systemic through your body, meaning through your whole bloodstream within about 20-ish seconds. And so when you put a chemical on your body, same thing. So one of the things coming up right now, since we're getting into the sunnier time of the year, sunscreens is a big one. People don't think about that. That has all kinds of harsh chemicals in there. The other thing we look at too are things like the water we put in ourselves. Most municipalities put really harmful chemicals like chlorine and even fluoride in your water systems. And so if you're not using whole house filtration systems and you're just getting not only orally when you're drinking it, but even the off gassing when you get into a shower. So those are all things you got to think about. And our municipalities and things, they're not bad people that run those things, but they just have other outside influences that really dumb down the science behind those things and make those things seem safe when really they're not. The other thing we look at a lot too are also our cleaning products in our houses. And so we look at things like the 409 that we use to clean down our surfaces, or the laundry detergent that we use inside, washing our clothes. Those are all things that will have chemicals that if we're not conscious about, just add up. And we look at all these different areas, right? Even like the foods we eat. So organic foods versus conventional foods are going to have about a 30% less toxic load. And you think, well, is that really that big of a deal? Well, again, it's about that bioaccumulation. Right. And our cells eventually just start to overflow. They can't process it enough. And when that toxicity bucket, so to speak, overflows, that's when we start to have the symptoms. And so, yeah, we'll get into that a lot more because I know we don't have a whole lot of time today on this episode to just kind of pick that down even further.
I think one of the things you mentioned is really insidious, and that's like cleaning products. And something that I hear from patients all the time is, well, it doesn't really matter because I'm not putting it in my mouth. I'm not eating my laundry detergent. I'm not eating my, counter cleaner or, even the dishwasher detergent. But the reality is, whatever your skin is coming into contact with, like you said, Dr. Chris, your skin is the biggest organ in your body, and it's full of holes. It's
or like just inhaling too. Yeah. Just inhaling those fumes from those things. Fragrances is another big one. Perfumes, the Glad plugins that we have, the candles, the scented candles, all these things, just, they go in straight to the brain. Where do you smell it? Olfactory goes right to your brain, which is the most sensitive area of our body.
Totally. Yeah. We always tell people, if you wouldn't eat it, don't put it on your body, in any form. Don't put it on anything that would ever come into contact with your body. Laundry detergent's a big one because you wear your clothes all day long. And so any kind of residue from the detergent or its fragrances, like you said, a lot of us want to have laundry that smells good. The danger is if you're using like fabric softeners or dryer sheets or even just detergent that has a really strong fragrance, typically that's not a natural fragrance. It's something that was made in the laboratory. It's a chemical. And then it just slowly, leaches into your system through your skin all day long as you're wearing that thing or smelling that thing. So yeah, I think personal care products and also cleaning products is something that we're going to get into in much, much detail in the Detox Project. And that's why it's called a project. For people that attend the webinar, it's not, you're not going to leave the webinar and go home and just fix everything just like that. It's a project. And again, that's why we're going to give you the 21-day detox kickstart is because it's really challenging. Like you're not going to be able to go home, change everything all overnight. But I do think that there is a wise or smart way to systematically and strategically start detoxifying your body. And that's what I wanted to ask you about next in the time that we have left. I just have a couple more questions. But what has been your most effective strategy for helping patients detoxify and balance hormones, clinically speaking?
Yeah. Number one is, really testing. If you're not testing, you're guessing. So, there's a difference between doing a cleanse and doing a detox, which obviously but a lot of people out there don't realize the difference. And so if you're really going to detox, get things well at a cellular level, which is really where all the healing starts and where you're going to get the change. You got to do testing. So doing testing to find out if you have heavy metals, if you have certain essential elements that are missing or low or high in your body, all these things tell us a lot to understand that. And then you can cultivate and customize a game plan to target and detox the body. There's things you can do to help use chelators and natural binders to help bind those toxins so they can actually get out of your body. Because a lot of times people try to do things like maybe eat cilantro or spirulina, which will help detox, but they're just stirring up the pot and there's no way to actually get it out. It's kind of like, I like the analogy of wading through a pond. You start to kick through a pond as a kid, you kick up all this silt, but where does that silt go? It doesn't go anywhere, right? Because there's no outlet to the pond. It just settles back somewhere else. And that's what you got to think of as your body. It's just going to settle somewhere else, but it might go from a place that wasn't too harmful to somewhere like your brain or your organs. And so testing, figuring out a game plan to help detox, do that naturally. And that can take anywhere from, 3 to 12 to 18 months, depending on how toxic someone is.
Well, and is that something you do? Because I know that that's a question that a lot of people probably have listening to the show is, man, this sounds great. Makes a lot of sense. I have those issues. Where do I go? Is that testing something that you do or that you can help people with?
Yeah, absolutely. We do testing with that. There's actually 3 different types of tests. There's the urine toxicity tests that we do. These are things you can do in the comfort of your own home, actually. So we work with people virtually all over the country. And then there's also a visual test too. It's a contrast sensitivity test because when you're toxic, one of the first areas affected will be your brain. And out of those, that area and out of your organs, your eyes will be affected in the sense of contrast and sensitivity. So there's actually an online visual test you can do that tells us a lot. And then there's also some body system questionnaires and things we can see to see how much it's affecting certain body systems. All gives us an idea of what needs to be done to help your body heal.
Yeah, that's awesome. So do you have, I think like you said, I would much rather test than guess. And that's why, like, even in our clinic, like even with chiropractic patients, like we very rarely give recommendations or treatment for people that we haven't taken x-rays and done a thorough examination on. And I think that just makes sense. But when it comes to these other issues like toxicity or nutrition, I think a lot of people just want to wing it. They want to listen to Dr. Google. They want to do what's recommended for the broader population. And the reality is everybody's different. Everybody's body chemistry is different. Genetics are different. So I think testing is the best way that you can get a personalized blueprint to do what you need to do. So I totally agree with that. I also realize that there are people that want to get going right now. Like they want to turn this podcast off or the show and they want to go to the store or go to the pantry or their cupboard. They want to start taking action right now. So what would you recommend for people that want to just take a step right now?
That's a great question. So you're absolutely right. It's kind of the 80-20 rule. 80% of people can do, a broad blanketed change in their lifestyle and they're going to get some changes. It's that 20% that you really got to focus and do things differently. But for that 80%, one of the things that I would recommend people doing immediately is just going out and start buying more organic produce. It can be a little more expensive sometimes, but you can't put a price on your health. I mean, this is huge. The second thing that I would recommend people doing is really getting out there and just taking your top 3 personal products that you use and going on to what's called ewg.org. And it's a website where you can look at different chemicals and foods and personal products to see what's the cleanest and what's not. And going on there and figuring out, okay, are yours toxic or not? You can plug them in there. And if they are, they can give you recommendations for less toxic products. So pick your top 3. Maybe it's your toothpaste, your deodorant, and the soap you use every day. The other thing in there, you can also find the Clean 15, the Dirty Dozen. So those are the cleanest vegetables you can use that are even conventional. So you can look at that and see which ones you can change in how you're eating on a daily basis. And I'd probably say the third thing you could do to help clean up your act, so to speak, is to just switch out your average cleaner, the cleaner you use the most. Just use a combination of really water, white vinegar, and an essential oil, maybe a lavender, a citrus oil. And that can do most of your cleaning, other than you don't want to use it on a natural stone. Just a disclaimer there. You don't want to ruin anyone's beautiful countertops. But other than that, you can just use water and that's it. So I think if people change those three things, they could have a huge difference in their biological impact, their toxic load, and they'd be on the right path to just making some changes there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's simpler than most people think, at least to get started. So, Dr. Chris, it's been amazing having you on the show. I cannot wait for the Detox Project webinar. Guys, if you want to get registered for that, just go to our website. We'll put a link in the show notes. You can register for that. It's going to be at the end of the month. Phenomenal. It's going to be an hour and a half, just action-packed, tons of value. You're going to get a free gift for coming, the 21-day detox kickstart. Dr. Chris, if people want to get a hold of you or follow you or see what you're up to, how can they do that?
Yeah, the best way is to go to thedrchris.com. It's the and then Dr. Chris. The other option is to go on to either our Facebook. They can find us on there, or even find us and listen to our podcast. It's Happy Healthy Hormones with Dr. Chris.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Dr. Chris. I really appreciate you being on. I know that people got a ton of value from it, and we'll see you back for the webinar here shortly.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. Looking forward to it.
So I want to take a minute and let you, our listeners, know about a special opportunity that we give every week on this show. If you're currently struggling with a health issue like chronic pain, low energy, weight loss resistance, digestion, or hormone imbalance, or you just want to optimize your health so that you can be the best version of yourself possible, we'd like to give you an opportunity to receive a free 15-minute health discovery call with either me or Dr. Aaron so that we can see how we can help you. On this call, you'll have the opportunity to let us know what your biggest health limitations are, as well as your short-term and future health goals. We're also going to ask you a bunch of questions, and at the end, if we feel like we can't help you, we'll give you recommendations for someone who can, or if we can help you, we'll schedule a 45-minute health strategy session to lay out a plan of action to help you start winning your health. If you'd like to schedule that free 15-minute health discovery call, all you have to do is call 208-664-1000. Again, that's 208-664-1000, and a team member from our office will either answer or call you right back and set up your call. Hey, thanks for spending time with us today. This has been Drs. Ryan and Aaron Sousley. Hope you enjoyed the show, and I hope it helps you win your health. We'll see you next time.